Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much, Andy, and good morning, everyone. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of information about carrying out action research into wellbeing interventions in schools and how that can support wellbeing of staff and of pupils. So I'll start off by telling you a little bit about me and what Educate to Flourish do in that particular context. I'm a former teacher, and for the last few years I've been supporting wellbeing in schools through keynote speaking and through training of children, staff and parents as well. I also do a little bit of postgraduate lecturing into positive education, and as you can see here, I'm quite busy writing a lot of the time, and actually I'm currently co-editing a new book on whole school wellbeing that's coming out next autumn. In terms of Educate to Flourish, which is the community interest company that I've set up and that I run, we do a number of things to support flourishing, but one of the things that's been really popular is action research projects in schools. We are currently in the second year of our work with the Leo Academy Trust. We completed last year a year's project with the Challenger Multi-Academy Trust, and we've also worked with one individual school on a slightly different process than the one that I will be talking about today. Most trusts and schools that come to us are interested in doing action research in a way that will enable them to actually publish the research that their staff do and share it with the wider education community. So this is the process that we typically undergo. Before we start the process, there would be a session where we provide information so that staff can be interested in doing action research and then join us on the journey. And this is the journey. So step one is typically a half-day training session for staff into wellbeing interventions, so positive education based in positive psychology and character education interventions. Although one school we're currently talking to has asked us if we could introduce also behaviour interventions to support wellbeing, and we can definitely do that. And one of our associate trainers is an expert in behaviour management in education, so we can definitely do that. The second stage is a inset into research methods, and believe it or not, people come out of that session feeling really excited about research methods, we give them all the preparation into how to do their research, and by the end of that day they usually have a pretty solidly formulated research question. They then go away and do the background reading around their topic and start carrying out their research, and we're available for email support, telephone support, etc. as needed throughout that process. We then come back at stage 5, which is giving them typically a twilight support session to go through the research they've done, what their results were, any troubles they had, etc. And it's very much a peer support session where we look at, well, how are you going to then write this research up and make it meaningful to others who read it as well. And from that, they go away and write their reports. Again, we're available for support throughout, and then they submit the reports to us, which we format, do a bit of work around, write an introduction, send back to the school or trust, who make it look all pretty for sharing, and then typically that report, and there is usually an event at which the data is presented to a wider public. So the Leo Academy Trust did it earlier this month, and I think Andy attended that one as well when they did their annual conference, and we presented the findings of the staff so far. The Challenger Multi-Academy Trust, when they did it in 2019, put a specific event on to actually share their findings to an invited audience. So it's down to the trust how they want to do it. So what is action research? Well, action research is practitioner-led research that is designed to develop and improve practice in schools in this context. It's very much focused on problem solving, and the approaches are flexible, and you can chop and change and move around as you find what works and what doesn't. And this has been particularly evident with the Leo Academy Trust, as partway through running their projects, that their projects were interrupted and disrupted by the first COVID lockdown. So a lot of them are now doing a second version with different year groups of pupils as well. So it helps teachers and other educators to examine the impact of their practices. So how else could we do this? Well, trial and error, of course. We've always done this as teachers, but what that doesn't give us is a clear and robust way to actually evaluate what does and doesn't work. And the other thing is getting researchers to come into school to look at what you're doing and tell you what to do differently, which we don't tend to like an awful lot, but also it doesn't really give us stuff that necessarily works in the practical setting that we know and understand. So action research is a means of delivering realistic results in a practical setting. How does it support well-being? Well, if we take the Martin Seligman model of well-being, which is PERMA, which is positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning and accomplishment, and then other researchers have added health at the end, you can look at that through that lens, and it enables teachers in terms of their own well-being, or other staff as well, to undertake meaningful and engaging CPD, as well as to connect and collaborate with other educators within their schools and a wider setting. And it gives them an enormous sense of achievement when they've actually produced their reports. And additionally, the research doesn't have to be into pupil well-being. It can be into staff well-being initiatives. From a pupil well-being perspective, well, if we look at whole school well-being, so, just interventions and one-off activities are certainly not the way you achieve a bigger well-being picture, but they're one of the components to whole school well-being. And they're an important component because by doing these activities and researching them and writing them up, you encourage other staff to also try things out, and provide evidence to the leadership team within your school or trust, and to policymakers in a wider context as to what works. And as we mentioned before, it's a systematic way to assess what works and doesn't work. So I'll very briefly talk you through some of the research projects that have been carried out. So you will be able to read about Alex's, amongst others. You look at the report from the Challenger Multi-Academy Trust. This is available as a PDF from our website, and I will post the link in the chat when I've finished presenting and answering your questions. So Alex is an early years teacher, and she wanted to explore how we can use character strengths and the language of character to take children at that very early age beyond the emotional expression of happy and sad. And she wanted to also take the opportunity to explore whether increasing their emotional literacy would also improve classroom atmosphere and improve their outcomes at the end of the early years foundation stage, in terms of what the DFE look for, so the personal, social and emotional development, and also the communication and language elements. So she did this by undertaking a 12-week project. So from a character perspective, she presented them with a list of character strengths. She presented them with a list of 10, and she asked them to describe what they meant. And then they had a very structured lesson on character education and what those character strengths were. And this was followed over the 12 weeks by a systematic process where the early years foundation stage team used language around those character strengths consistently and frequently in a familiar and meaningful context. The children had daily circle time activities this language, and they were praised for using it correctly. They also had a weekly structured special person activity where they praised their peers using the strengths of the language of strengths, and parents were also encouraged to use this language at home. And by the end of this 12-week period, I will fly over this because you will be able to read it in detail in the report when you download it. They were able to describe many more of these strengths more accurately, but also how they described them became much wider. They struggled a little bit with sensibility and perseverance, but still improved. But humour was the one they understood the most. When it came to emotional literacy, she gave them a range of emojis and asked them to describe them. And then again, she did lots of activities for those 12 weeks. So activities around feeling. So, for example, telling social stories, pulling faces to show emotions, sorting facial expressions. The staff were also really key in this by modelling their emotional expression and supporting children to do the same, and encouraging them to use a wider range of emotional vocabulary. And they used a restorative justice approach to behaviour management as well, so children can understand the consequences of their actions in terms of how they affected other people's emotions as well. So there was a noticeable difference, as well as the ability to describe more of those emojis, but in how they express their feelings. So one example was one child said, "He is frustrating me because he won't share." That's very specific for a very young child. Their language improved drastically. In terms of the personal, social and emotional development and the communication and language, these were vastly improved compared to the previous year's cohort at the same points in time. And particularly in the spring term, the improvement was phenomenal. And that was the term when they ran the intervention. So in terms of future development for this, obviously it was a small scale study. It would be great to see that replicated from Alex's perspective, to see if it can achieve a similar outcome. And some children struggled with some of the character language if they joined part way through the study, and also those for whom the English wasn't their first language. But overall, there was a real improvement, particularly on the emotional literacy. So as a teaching points for teaching staff, she suggests staff members could be encouraged to use a wider vocabulary around emotional expression, as modeling this and also teaching children to do this, and that introducing the language of character strengths can help children to describe themselves and others in more positive terms, and giving them time to talk about their emotions and their strengths is really positive for their self-confidence. I'll very briefly talk about a project at the Leo Academy Trust. Melinda Young was very interested. She was a senior leader within the trust, so she borrowed a Year 6 class for this project, and she was really interested in looking at how doing a colouring or free drawing activity could calm children down before their SATs. So she borrowed them during their mock SATs test week, as it would have been ethically a bit difficult to do that during their actual SATs. And at the beginning of that week, she asked them to complete this questionnaire. So it was a feeling survey. This was actually based on the short STAI, which is the state trait anxiety test, and she added some emojis to make it more accessible to them. So they completed this, and then they did their mock SATs test for the day. On day 2, they were randomly given an envelope which told them to either do a free drawing activity or a mandala colouring activity. They then did this activity for 5 minutes. Then they did this this survey again, and then they did their mock SATs test. And they repeated the same activity on days 3 and 4 as well. Now, the outcomes of this were that the feelings of calmness increased for most pupils. There was little change in how worried they felt, and there was a small increase in some of the children that felt upset. The findings do suggest, based on what she did and also on the literature that she read, that there is a possibility of inducing a feeling of calm before a test by doing some drawing, some colouring or mandala drawing. But it was a very small scale study. There were 30 in the class, 27 started, and then lockdown came in partway through. So there were actually only pupils who took part in the full study, and that's who she based the data on. So some of her reflections were that those that were perhaps more worried, this may have been due to the pandemic. The pupils were aware that they were mocks, and they'd been very well prepared to be very relaxed about it by their teachers, so they weren't all that anxious to start with, so it was very difficult to see a massive uplift. And also they may have become calmer as the week went on because they were familiar with the testing regime. On the other side, those that did become more anxious, as I mentioned, could have been because of the pandemic itself. So she'd love to see this done by more schools with more children, and in fact another staff member at Leo Academy Trust is probably going to follow this up in the next cohort. It would be great to have a placebo group, so either split the class into 3 and have one part of the class doing an unrelated placebo activity, or to do it with 2 classes where the second class doesn't do any of the activities to see what the outcome is. And of course, with more pupils, it would be great to see the difference between the activities to see whether one works better than another. So to conclude, if you're interested in engaging in action research to support well-being in your school and to see what works and what doesn't, then this is a great way to actually give your staff a fantastic opportunity for CPD. And if you're a member of staff and you're thinking, well, my school isn't doing this, then why not talk to your line manager about doing this independently and getting the support of the school to actually further your professional development. Of course, it works even better if you do it as a school, but you can do it as an individual as well. And if you are interested in doing this and you would like Educate to Flourish to support you with it, then you have all of my contact details there. So do get in touch, and I will post the link so you can read the Challenger Multi-Academy Trust study as well. And I'm now open to any questions. Thank you so much.
Frederika, that is perfect. Almost bang on. 15 minutes. It's almost like you practiced it.
almost, and like I had a timer on my screen as well.
Absolutely, nothing like being prepared.
Absolutely.
I do. I would like to really emphasise the importance of what Fred's just been talking about, because you know, I did something similar to this, not in an action research way, but in terms of a PERMA approach in my school. It was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't really understand what I was doing. I just knew that my staff and my children in school were in a far better place. And because they were in a better place and they felt empowered and they had some autonomy and they regained their sense of purpose, our results started to fly. And it wasn't, you know, we weren't sort of checking the data every week or anything like that. It was purely and simply, we found that, you know, when people feel as though they're fulfilled and they're engaged in the learning process, you know, and and a lot of what Frederika does is around all of that, about developing those character strengths and those personal strengths. And it's well known that, you know, really high quality CPD makes such a difference to teachers. And that sense of, you know, I'm doing something here practically that hopefully will show some really positive results in terms of enabling our children to be calmer and being better learners is absolutely huge. So, you know, for me, this is a real go-to organisation. I would strongly suggest making contact with Fred, set up a Zoom with her. I'm sure you'd be happy to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And have a conversation about, you know, the sort of things that you're doing in a bit more detail. And it may be that you can create a bespoke package in the way that the Leo Academy Trust have done as well. And I know, having spoken to them, that they're so glad they started this journey. And we've got other schools as well around the country who are very much working on the PERMA agenda. So if you're in this, and you know, absolutely, I would really commend it to you, then please do get in touch with Fred. I can't see any questions down the side. Is there anything that anybody would raise about what Fred has said this morning, or maybe what I've just said?
Andy, it's Catherine here. I'm just noticing that on the chat function, it's saying I can't put any messages on there because I'm not a member of the chat, if that's where we're hoping to write our questions.
Right. Let's, for the time being, I'll contact Danny and see if Danny can support us with this and open that chat up. In the meantime, I think the best bet is probably to put your hand up. You know, the little emoji hand, the raised hand at the top of the screen. If you'd like to ask a question, maybe the best thing to do at the moment is just to raise your hand, and I will see if I can spot you. And then whilst Jan's doing the next presentation, I'll contact Danny and see if we can sort the chat bar out. Any hands? Thank you for that, Catherine. Anybody else? I think they're either saving their questions for a one-to-one Zoom conversation, or you've done an immaculate job, and I think it's probably both.
Well, I'm more than happy to have a Zoom chat with anybody that wants to know a little bit more. So, you know, take a screenshot, a photo, whatever, of my contact details and get in touch, and I'll be more than happy to chat you through any questions you might have. And we do much more than action research as well in terms of how we support schools, of course, but this is the most popular thing that we do. So,
yeah. And
thank you so much, Andy.
And Fred's book, For Flourishing's Sake, I read over the summer. If you want an introduction to positive education and flourishing in schools, then pick up a copy, because it's got some lovely, I think you're going to find it, there it is. It's got some lovely examples of how this work has really taken off, not just in the UK, but around the world. So please have a look at that as well. It's a really easy readable book with key takeaways at the end of every chapter. So thank you
so much, Andy. I'll pay you later.
Have a good day.
And you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, what we'll do here is I'll start off the next presentation, which is due to start in a minute. And whilst Jan is speaking to us, I will speak to Danny and see if we can get the chat sorted. In the meantime, until you hear from me otherwise, I think we're just going to have to raise our hands. There's enough of us, a few of us, to be able to raise our hands and probably get a question. So our next contributor is Jan Rudge. And Jan's going to talk about creating a regular space to think through pure non-directive coaching and cascading this to become a cost-effective and sustainable model in school. I know Jan is with us. Jan, would you like to unmute?
Certainly will.
Lovely to see you this morning.
Good morning. I've got Jay Parks waiting, so I'm going to admit her. Is that okay, Andy?
I've admitted.
Smashing, thank you. Okay. Oh, right. Shall I share my screen then, Andy? Do you want me just to crack on?
Yep. If you just share your screen and then we're away.
Okay, super. This is a bit where I keep my fingers crossed. I think we have the technology.
Yeah.
Getting there.
And of course, you can watch all of these wellbeing meets back because we're recording them and sticking them on our website as well. So so those will be up as of later today, all being well. Lovely. Thanks, Jan.
Okay, thanks, Andy. So good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for sparing the time in what is, I know, a bit of a crazy time out there for schools at this point in time. So I'm going to talk to you about pure coaching, which is a non-directive coaching style that we use at Leadership Edge. But the power of it is in helping schools to create their own holistic coaching culture. So just before I get into what pure coaching is, a little bit about my own background. So started life as a primary head. You can see the other things I did. Serving with the National College of Teaching and Leadership was just an amazing opportunity. You never know what's around the corner. I facilitate leadership training, which I'm passionate about. I work with ITT students, so not only leaders, but people right at the opposite end of the teaching spectrum. And in 2018, I started a bespoke coaching company called Leadership Edge with a team of coaches that are all around the country. And excitingly, in January, we've got our very first book coming out. I've put a picture there of Hayley Guest because she's going to feature in this presentation. She is a long-standing coachee and an amazing head teacher, and really Leadership Edge is based on her journey. So, well, it's a non-directive style. Now you might think the way we presented it that it's an acronym, but actually it isn't really. It's about the focus of each coaching session is purely the agenda of the coachee, not the leader, not the coach. It is the agenda of the coachee. And done regularly, it creates this regular scheduled space for teachers, for leaders, for support staff to really stop and think amid the busyness of school life. And that's never more important than at this moment. And the purpose of it is to help each individual in our school to bring their best self to school by sorting out the things that are going on in their own life. So just to give it some perspective here, we at Leadership Edge work in the non-directive end of the coaching spectrum, whereas many coaching models that I'm aware of in schools tend to focus on the non-directive end because this is about coaching for performance. So we're not about that. We're about listening and helping people to find their own solutions to the challenges that they bring to our sessions. So this is what we're not about. We're not about mentoring. We consider that a totally different set of skills. And coaching for us is not directly school improvement. It's about finding a space to think. But having said that, there are times when people might want to bring a school improvement issue to the session, their choice, their agenda. And importantly, we don't give people answers, we just enable them to find their own solutions through questioning and taking that time to think. Now, pure coaching acknowledges that we're all human, that we've all got personal factors, and our personal factors can impact on our work life. So what it does is it provides a space where you can sort out the clutter in your mind, put certain things to one side, bring certain things to the fore. It's about what matters most to you at this moment in time. It's a space for you to think about a way forward that works for you. And that's why the word we hear more than anything from our coachees is it just feels empowering. We absolutely know it supports mental health and well-being. And we know, again, as humans, we can often get caught up in our own thinking. And then we play and we replay that internal dialogue in our head, sometimes to the extent that it can drive us crazy, or we'll ask a lot of people and people give us their opinions, and it's not always helpful. So this is with someone, a conversation with someone who's not emotionally involved in your life, but is a partner in it. And articulating your thinking, we know scientifically, is a very different mental process. And by articulating, by hearing yourself think, it leads to people feeling that sense of choice over the decisions they're making, some control and connection to it. They make decisions that feel right for them. So here's our beginning. So it all started really when Hayley Guest was the new head teacher of East Park Primary Academy in Wolverhampton. I was her coach in her first headship. This is her second one. And I remember clearly one day when she said, "Jan, I just need another challenge." And boy, did she get one. So she took over East Park in January 2016. It actually says special measures. It didn't actually go in special measures till the February after she'd called Ofsted in. But it was RI when she took it over. And she absolutely knew what she was getting into. She knew this school needed some strong leadership. It was broken. And so were the staff, and so were the children. It was an unhappy place to be. But hark to this one, everyone. They did have the most splendid tea towel policy. They didn't have a teaching and learning policy, but they did have a tea towel one. So if anybody out there wants a tea towel policy, Hayley's more than happy to share it with you. So as the rebuilding of the school began, Hayley wanted to empower her staff. She'd done, in her words, a lot of her growth through being coached, through thinking through the next best step for schools and to putting that into practice. And so the strapline of East Park became Growing Hearts and Minds. And from that journey, and I was working with her every step of the way as her coach, we established what has now become our 3-tier coaching programme. And East Park were rated outstanding in June 2019. And I know Catherine Holm is on the call, and she actually came to meet Hayley and I the day after they got the outstanding. And it was a pretty mad time in the school, but very memorable. So I'm sorry, folks, our method of coaching just isn't a quick fix, but it is sustainable and it is cost effective. And we absolutely know it impacts on staff well-being. And when you feel great, your performance at school tends to be good too. So we have a 3-tier process. We have foundation stage, practitioner stage, and master stage. And they've all got 3 or 4 parts. So at foundation stage, you just receive coaching. Many people in schools that call themselves coaches have never had a coaching session themselves, which amazes me and continues to do so. So they are coached, and then they do some written reflections, And really importantly, there is a session at the end of the process where they have what we call our coach conversation, when they articulate the learning that they've taken away from the coaching that they've had. At practitioner stage, they then start to coach themselves, and they take on 2 other people in the school, and they can coach them through foundation stage if they wish. And then the same process occurs with master coach. You carry on coaching, and at the same time, you are coached and supervised right through each journey by one of the Leadership Edge team, until you have people in school that can do that for themselves. So just showing you what that might look like. So if this golden person starts the journey in term 1 of an academic year, they'll get coaching, they'll get some skills training, which I'll talk to you about in a little while, and then they'll get their accreditation because they filled in the e-portfolio and had their coach conversation. In term 2, the golden person goes on to do practitioner coach, which takes 2 terms. They select 2 people from their school who they will also continue to coach through the journey that they've been on. The difference becomes when it's the green and the blue person, the cost reduces to £150 a person. So as soon as you start providing the coaching in school, then the costs start to tumble. In year 2, term 4 and 5, the golden person can continue to coach the green and the blue, or even these 2 people might co-coach each other. And if the yellow person, the golden person, wants to, they can take on the master coach training. And each of them can take 2 further people through foundation stage. The costs just keep going down the more people who get involved in the process. One of the things we start with at the start of any of our coaching relationships is we ask them, people, if they would do our ASSESS.COACH quiz. Now, it's on our front page of our website. Feel free to do it. It takes less than 5 minutes and you get some feedback. And the front page of the feedback, you get this diagram. So I thought I'd just share with you 3 of these. So interestingly, this was one of my ITT students after the first half term. And you can see she was just loving the choice she'd made. Yes, she got to work on stress and her work-life balance, but she was loving the decision she'd made and was really happy. Person B here was a head teacher in her 3rd headship. And I looked at it and thought, this is going to be an interesting conversation. And she was an amazing head teacher and was able to explain very articulately why she felt that she was lacking in clarity and purpose. And person C was a teacher in her 3rd year who just simply lost her way. So having this snapshot gives you a great starting conversation for any coaching relationship. We know there are barriers. And one of the barriers is a misunderstanding of what coaching can be. So it's not unusual for people to say to us, if I'm being coached, does that mean I'm doing something wrong or I'm failing in some way? And I think, sometimes instructional coach gives people that impression that they're not doing well. And unfortunately, we know at times it's also the precursor to competence. So the prevailing culture in a school is important, as is money, and being able to show return on investment. And as I say, it's not a quick fix, but we know from Haley's example and others that it does lead to greater retention. Who wants to leave a school that's looking after them so well? And it does lead to less absenteeism. People seem to be in a better well-being shape. And as far as time goes, it's amazing the creative solutions that people come up with, and I can talk you through those to later date should you wish to. So for the benefits, I just suggest you read the 2019 East Park Academy results. It talks about coaching throughout the report. It totally supports servant leadership, helping leaders to support their staff, to support their children. And here are some of the things that our people have said to us. So in the coach conversations and the written reflections, with their permission, I've quoted directly from them. This coachee saying she felt as if a weight had been lifted and felt a lot stronger. This one here, one of the male coachees that we've had, he didn't realise that he was as strong as he was, and he viewed himself in a terribly negative way. Doesn't help well-being, does it, if that's how you feel? Empowering is a word that comes up a lot. Sharing problems help me turn problems into solutions. That's what we're all about. It's about that partnering people as they go through their journeys with us in schools. And importantly, reaching out for what I want rather than waiting for somebody to come and offer it for me. Raise my self-esteem, improve my mental space. And this is a big one, and it's said so often. I love my coaching session. I feel like a weight has been lifted. So if you decide to come on the journey with us, and we'd love you to, this is what you'll get. You'll get access to a team of school experienced coaches. We made the decision that everybody that worked for Leadership Edge would have a school leadership background, and some of our team are still serving leaders full-time in schools. You'll get your own leadership coach. They will be with you every step of the way. And you'll also get some quality skills materials at foundation and practitioner level that come in a folder, and then at master coach level, those are online. There's also a box of tissues which we don't supply. We ask you to supply your own in case you feel that at times, you know, it just might get emotional. It's a staged approach, but you will know how to coach when you become a coach, and you'll also get regular updates through our monthly coach magazine. And excitingly, in January 21, we've got our very first book coming out, and it's about Hayley's journey and my journey. It talks about how Leadership Edge started, now how and now why, and it also references some other great leadership reads for you. And if you want to contact us, there are many ways you can do that. I'm more than happy for you to contact me directly by email, or even send me a message or pick up the phone. We're on social media, and we have two websites, our main website, which is Leadership Edge, and our Pure Coaching website, which is just there to promote our book. So that's it from me for this snapshot. Really happy to take your questions now and to hear from anybody else who wants to outside of this conversation.
Thank you, Jan. That was really comprehensive, and it's the thing that keeps coming up is that sense of purpose, and that sort of trying to get to the things that potentially are stopping you from being the best that you can be and being the most fulfilled that you can be. And we know that if people feel fulfilled in the job they're doing, they're more effective doing it. And I know it's not rocket science. I said that to somebody last week. It's not rocket science. And they said, no, it's neuroscience. But thank you for all of that. There are no questions in the chat, and just to let you know, the chat is now working because Fred posted a link to the action research report that she talked about. So the chat is working. I'll just leave it a couple more seconds to see if there's anything else coming through in the chat. I think the general feeling when we do these, Jan, is that people take the information away and mull it over, and then potentially get in touch after the session. But everybody's doing such a really good job in terms of explaining exactly what it is they do, that people go away knowing full well what people do. So all of those contact details for Jan and Leadership Edge were on the slide that you saw previously. And I think, unless there are any questions, we'll let you go.
Thank you very much, Andy. It's been great to have the opportunity to share this morning.
Lovely. Nice to see you, Jan, and have a good day.
You too. Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Bye. Okay, we're going to move across now to our next speaker. And the speaker this morning is, I think it is Becky Tapper from the Foundation for Positive Mental Health. Becky, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Fabulous, lovely to meet you. And I know Sheila Ross is on the call as well. Do you have a presentation to show, Becky?
Yes, I'll put that on now.
Fabulous. It should be fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
It might take a little while.
This is the one.
Fabulous. That's great. So Becky, you're going to talk about teaching skills to a whole class via our Feeling Good for Schools programme, which includes class audios, weekly lessons delivered by school teachers, lesson plans, resources, booklets included, and teacher training. Over to you.
Thanks very much. So hi, I'm Becky Tapper and I'm the School Liaison Officer for the Foundation for Positive Mental Health. And I work on a programme called Feeling Good for Schools alongside Dr. Sheila Ross, who is one of the MDs of the charity, and also Serena Steptoe, who is the project officer for the charity. So as Andy said, it's a programme for Key Stage 3 pupils, and it's to help them to develop resilience and improve wellbeing. And we hope that through doing this, it will also have some impact on the staff who are delivering the programme. So firstly, what is the programme? It consists of 6 weekly lessons. It's aimed at Year 7, but it could also be delivered to Year 8 or to Year 9. It's 6 weeks of regular listening to audio tracks that are based on the NHS approved adult listening programme, Feeling Good Positive Mindset, that I'll talk to you a little bit more about later. There's a second 6-week follow-on programme that's available for the year after they take part in the first year programme. There's free access to apps for young people and also for adults. And it came about from the Foundation for Positive Mental Health and their experience of working with adults in the community who needed support with overcoming things like depression and anxiety, amongst many other things. Oh yes, as I said, it promotes recovery from emotional distress. This is the adult app, which the young person's programme is based on. Dr. Alistair Dobbin and Dr. Sheila Ross had experiences as a GP and working in health promotion, and that's how they put together their adult programme. It involves sports mental training techniques, plus relaxation and positive psychology. The adult programme is fundamentally an audio programme, and it's applied to everyday life for recovery and resilience. It's research-based, it's evidence-based, and it's NHS digital accredited. And it's used in the NHS and universities. It's also been going for 13 plus years. Okay, so a little bit more about what made Dr. Sheila Ross and Dr. Alistair Dobbin decide to move it into schools. They did some research and through their own work experiences were a bit alarmed by some of the statistics around young people. So, for example, 3/4 of adults with mental illness first experience symptoms before age 25. Half of all mental health conditions start by 14 years of age. And learning fundamental skills for maintaining general mental health is key to helping adolescents thrive. So with some funding from Nesta, which is a Future Ready Fund grant, they decided to start the Feeling Good for Schools programme. The programme is proactive rather than reactive. So what Sheila and Alistair really wanted it to be was something that was embedded across the whole school, non-stigmatising. It wasn't something that was just applied to pupils who were singled out as having mental health issues that needed to be addressed. They wanted it to be something where pupils can have the skills ahead of time, build positive emotions, good psychological function, autonomy, competence, relatedness, underpinning self-esteem and intrinsic motivation. So to have the skills for life that would help them to cope with any challenges that came their way, rather than just addressing the challenges after the event. So the programme for young people, the programme in schools, as I said, is a 6-week programme. It consists of 2 main elements. The first is daily listening, and this is the part that's based on the adult programme that was developed first. So the idea is that in schools, pupils listen preferably daily, but if that's not feasible, then as much as possible, they listen daily to tracks that have been created by Alistair and Sheila. And the tracks talk them through techniques and strategies for coping with everyday challenges. There's also an app that they can use at home that supports the listening that they do in school. And they can listen to this in their own time, anytime they want to. If they're feeling a little bit stressed and they want to listen to something to help to calm them down, if they need some help falling asleep, if they want to have it on in the background while they're doing other activities, it supports things that they do, the listening that they do in school regularly. But the listening that they do in school regularly is quite important because it is a bit of a skill to master. What we find is that the first time pupils listen to the tracks, they can feel a little bit unsure about what it is. They might be a little bit fidgety, they might be a bit distracted, and they do struggle a little bit to begin with the idea of repeated listening to the same tracks, but they need to listen to the same tracks repeatedly in order for them to develop the skills. So it's about a little bit about the perseverance that comes from that listening. I suppose I should say as well that the programme itself, the entire programme, is delivered by teachers themselves. We don't come into schools to deliver it, because it's our sort of position that the teachers learn to become more effective, perhaps, at delivering this kind of programme to develop resilience in pupils, to develop their emotional well-being and mental health, if they're delivering it themselves rather than it being outsiders who come in and deliver it. I'm a teacher myself. I probably should have said that earlier, actually. So I currently teach as well. I teach in a school for boys with social, emotional, mental health needs. So it is. There are some of the techniques that I use myself with the boys in school. I've been teaching for 10 years, taught in mainstream first, but now teaching a special school. So I do apply a lot of the techniques that I use myself when we're sort of putting this program together. So some of the feedback that we've had from the daily listening, from a pupil and a teacher who took part in it, it was relaxing and something that you kind of look forward to for the start of the week before going to a period of learning. You get a wee bit of time. It benefits kids who just need some help to calm down. I'd say it's particularly helpful there. It grounds them in a lesson, helps them find a calm zone that they're able to work in for the rest of the period and hopefully the rest of the day. Pupils made reference to the way that listening calmed them down, was relaxing, provided a moment of quiet, was peaceful, or prepared them for the day. So this came out because we evaluated the programme. We carried out a pilot of the programme last year before rolling it out again this year. And it's quite an extensive evaluation that was part of our funding agreement, and an independent evaluation. And this is the feedback that we got from the many schools who took part. So one of the people said, I've really loved listening to the relaxing tracks before I start English, and it helps me to concentrate. So that's what we hope to gain from it. Now onto the taught sessions. So the listening is ideally something that takes place daily. The taught sessions take place once a week, usually in lessons like PSHE, but sometimes it's been in PE, sometimes it's been in a combination of a few different lessons. And as I said, it's just over a 6-week period. So 6 weekly lessons aimed at Year 1 or S1 if you're in Scotland. 6 weekly follow-on lessons available when that year group moves into the next year. As Andy said before I started speaking, PowerPoints, booklets for pupils, and a teacher overview are provided with the programme. Topics in Year 1 lessons include things like mental strength, emotions, positive values, friendship, conflict resolution, and breathing strategies. Some of the feedback from the taught sessions, it got me to feel positive and more confident for myself. Also, the audio tracks made me more positive. It let me feel calm and confident for the day ahead, and the activities let me open up. And then, as well as the audio tracks that we provide and the lessons that we provide through PowerPoints and also through pupil booklets, ahead of delivering the programme, because it's delivered by teachers themselves, there's a teacher training programme that we've put together, and this is pre-recorded, so it's accessible anytime that's suitable for teachers. So some schools have decided to deliver it on their inset days. Some have used it in twilight sessions and kind of left it up to teachers to access as and when they want. There is provided at the end of the training, and it can be dipped in and out of throughout the delivery if needed. So the online modules consist of things like the science and theory behind the programme. So we talk the people who take part in the training through where it came from, how it was derived from sports. That's quite a big part of it. The evaluation of the pilot programme that took place last year, and then the content of the listening and the taught sessions. There's also ongoing remote support throughout via forum emails and phone calls. So I'm on hand to kind of help with anything to do with the delivery, to answer any questions. We also keep in touch around evaluation and things like that, and kind of get a sense of how it's going, constantly wanting to improve and update the programme. We also want to involve parents and carers where possible. So we do share free access to the adult NHS approved app with parents and carers, with teachers, with school staff, so that because the idea is a whole school approach is taken to improving wellbeing. So we do provide a free login to that app. Because we're funded, so we're funded by Nesta, it means that the programme is free for schools to access. So all the resources that Andy mentioned at the start are included in the free package. The ongoing support, the training was all included, access to the adult app and access to the young person's app. But we do have some expectations of schools to make that work in order for us to continue to get the programme, to be able to provide the programme for free. So some of the expectations are that schools will try to take a whole school approach to improving wellbeing. So they might start it with Year 7 this year, and they might extend it next year into Year 8, and then the new Year 7s that come in. And the idea is that they sort of gradually roll out this idea of a mentally healthy school, that they'll disseminate information of the programme to the relevant people. So that might be the pupils and the teaching staff and other staff involved in delivering the programme. They provide us with feedback. This is absolutely essential for us to keep improving the programme. And particularly this year, with the impact of COVID, it's been important that we adapt it so that it works for schools. So getting the feedback has been absolutely invaluable to make sure that it does continue to work for schools. We ask schools to support our pupil and teacher evaluations. So before they begin delivery of the programme, we ask teachers and pupils to complete surveys so we can get a sense of what their mental health and wellbeing is like now. And then we get them to complete a survey at the end of the 6 weeks again to see what impact the programme has had on them. And we make comparisons between schools, an understanding of the different contexts of schools and how this might impact wellbeing. We ask schools to integrate the daily listening and taught sessions. We ask that the most important part and the fundamental part of the programme is the daily listening. And schools have sometimes had to sort of rejig things a little bit to make that work. Most of the daily listening is taking place in form time before school starts. It's the tracks that pupils listen to are less than 5 minutes. So it is something that's quite quick, and as the teachers and pupils are fed back, it can calm them for the day ahead. But it's just about making that work alongside things like notices and the other expectations of form time. So we just work with individual schools to make that work for them. And then finally, to deliver the programme as recommended. So we're not dipping in and out of it and kind of just teaching a couple of the lessons. For it to be really impactful, it needs to follow the 6 weeks in the order that we've suggested, and to be continuous. So just finally, some more comments from pupils that they liked that it gave them time to relax and breathe. It was relaxing. They could forget about the bad stuff that was happening. Again, pretty relevant this year, perhaps. The fact that I now worry about things way less and feel more relaxed because of the audios, it helped me calm down when I was feeling really stressed and really down. So if this is something that you think that your school might be interested in, something that you might want to deliver, again, it is free for schools, for academies. If you're a private school, then have a conversation with us and we'll see what we can do. But because it's funded by Nesta, we have to follow their expectations in terms of our funding agreement. So it is state schools, state academies. But here's my email address if you want to find out any more. We've also got some websites. So the Feeling Good app website tells you a bit more about the and then there's our Foundation for Positive Mental Health website that tells you about the charity as a whole. You can find us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. So please do get in touch if you want to know any more about the programme or if you'd like to deliver it in the spring or summer term. Okay, thanks, Andy.
Fantastic, Becky. Thank you ever so much. And I was just listening to that thinking, and all of this is for free. It just seems to be an amazing package for schools to be able to access. How many schools are you working with across the country?
We've currently got just under 20 schools signed up for this year. Obviously, we've had to do a little bit of adapting when their schools have closed or if bubbles have closed. So it's been a bit of a strange one this year. But yeah, so far we've got a few schools that are starting delivery in January. We've currently got, I think there are 5 schools that are delivering right now. But yeah, we've got capacity for more in the spring and summer term. So yeah, space for them.
Have you any interim feedback reports from those schools that you might want to share with us?
We've got our report from the pilot programme last year. We've only got one school that's just finished the 6 weeks. So in terms of the feedback, it's quite anecdotal so far, but we had some feedback from one of the schools last week where the teacher said that he felt that it was actually improving his own wellbeing as well, listening to the tracks daily, because of the strategies are applicable to both young people and adults. And he was using them with his year 11s as well as the selected year group, which was year 7. because he felt that it was, he had, in his words, a rowdy year 11 class. It helped to calm them down before the day ahead. So that's the idea. It's sort of meant to be calming. It's meant to be empowering in terms of pupils and teachers and other school staff and the wider community, kind of enhancing their own well-being and mental health skills.
Absolutely. And, you know, I love the way that it integrates with working with parents as well, because I think sometimes when we're looking at whole school well-being, it's easy to forget the parents, but, you know, the well-being of the pupils that we see in school every day is so much affected by what goes on in the home. So integrating this and skilling parents up to be able to support what you're doing in school is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we sent a letter out actually just last week with the free login codes for both the Young People's app and the adult app for parents and carers to try to get them involved in it. And a lot of our sort of approach is that even people who might feel a little bit skeptical about this kind of sort of well-being program might be kind of tricked into enjoying it and benefiting from it, if you will, sort of on the side by encouraging young people to get involved in it. So yeah, it is something we're trying to get a lot of people to reach a lot of people, to reach the adults as well. But yeah, it's just about giving it a try and seeing if it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, I mean, all three presentations, the two words that have come through time and time again are autonomy and purpose, and to a certain extent resilience as well. So yeah, another great provider who is sitting on the National Wellbeing Partnership website, who you can either contact through the links that Becky left on the end of the presentation. And obviously, we'll put this recording up on our website later today, or go straight to our and have a look at the Foundation for Positive Mental Health page that we've created. Thanks ever so much, Becky. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Sheila's put in the chat, please see our report from last year on the charity website www.foundationforpositivementalhealth.com/for-schools. Our analysis last year suggested that it helped maintain pupil resilience that tends to dip in year 7. And that is, you know, that for me, I've always felt there's been something that has happened between year 6 and year 7. And I think it's something to do with the fact that within a smaller setting, it's easier to maintain those levels of resilience. Whereas when you go into a much bigger school, your resilience seems to be tested. And I think that's absolutely right, Sheila. So thank you for that. Yeah, that was a really good session. Thank you, Becky.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, there are no questions popping up in the chat, so I'm going to move on to our next speaker, and Sunita Bagri is with us, I believe, just checked in. Sunita is going to talk about what is the Every Teacher Matters project / network, wellbeing as an individual and collective responsibility, how can we invest in our self-care individually, and how can we use the Teach Well toolkit to implement a whole school culture of well-being. Sunita.
Hi. Morning. Good morning, Andy.
Morning. Are you planning to share your screen?
No, I was just going to talk. So I was expecting Steve Waters to be joining me this morning. So if you could just look out for him if he does come on, as we're going to do a joint presentation, but that's not a problem. I'll make a start and share what the Every Teacher Matters project is with everybody. So good morning, everybody. It's lovely. I can't see you all, so it's lovely to be on. I know that you can see and hear me. So I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name's Sunita Bagri, and I've been in primary school education for the past 20 years. And over the last 4/5 years, I was a interim head teacher in different schools, varying contexts. So I led schools that were part of large multi-academy trusts, led schools that were small local authority schools, free schools, and also some smaller MATs. And I have always had a very personal and deep interest in mental health and personal development, purely because of my own own upbringing and some of the curveballs that life threw at me. And as a result, I turned inwards and looked at sort of personal development and inner resilience and developed an inner armour So I started to lead schools with a place of compassion for self, but also for compassion towards others, and you know, a really deep commitment to relationships and investing in relationships with staff teams and people in general. And I felt that that leadership approach was serving me well. So even in some of the most difficult schools and circumstances where the standards were particularly poor, I don't think there's a secret formula other than just be compassionate towards people, be genuine, show people that you love, care and respect them in the same way that you love, care and respect the children, and that of course we are a team together, and we're going to make it work together to raise standards for ultimately the children. So I don't think there was any real rocket science behind that formula, but as I say, it worked well for me. And life continued to throw a few curveballs my way, which it does, doesn't it? And I would like to pride myself on the fact that I've managed those pretty well and kept leading and kept teaching and doing all those things. And something took me out of the profession a couple of years ago, linked to my son, who has epilepsy and was having some seizures. So I came out of my head teacher role, and I developed, I'm a really passionate educator, which I know those that know me always say comes across, and I wasn't going to let another curveball get me down. So I just came up with this project called Every Teacher Matters, because I was experiencing ill mental health, a result of some of the challenges in life. And I'd seen so many members of staff go through this in the schools that I'd led, and some were personal circumstances, some were due to factors that, the educational landscape has changed so much. Those of us that have been in will know that. And for that reason, we have to be fair to our staff. We have to treat them well, with respect and with dignity. And I want to keep staff in school. I'm really passionate about teacher retention. I had to fight for the privilege of an education, which is another story that I won't have time for today, but do contact me if you'd like to know more. And for all of those reasons put together and combined, I felt really compelled to do something about it. So the Every Teacher Matters project was born really out of my passion and my true purpose, which is education, people, relationships, and keeping well. And about 8-9 years ago, I had also developed my role as a coach in school. So with this sort of personal experience that I had, coupled with the coaching skills and the coaching methodology that I'd learned, together facets of this project called Every Teacher Matters. So that consists of coaching for wellbeing, networking and events, which is centred all around wellbeing and giving our educators, our teachers, our school support staff a platform for a confidential space amongst like-minded members of school communities to come together and speak and prioritise their wellbeing. So and then the third aspect of it, so I've got the coaching for wellbeing, then the network, and then the third aspect is around training. And the training very much, it consists of personal development, wellbeing workshops, understanding and avoiding stress, combating anxiety, developing resilience, achieving work-life balance, looking at time management strategies, effective self-efficacy, and then mental health first aid training. So that's really the core sort of objectives of the Every Teacher Matters project. I want to tell you a bit more about the purpose of the network. So the network is for teachers and school leaders and support staff, as I've mentioned, and it really is to place wellbeing at the heart of everything that we do. So the purpose of the network is to raise awareness and educate whilst we develop communities of like-minded individuals who then share and support one another. And I would say that the core function is to empower individuals to provide our frustrated teaching staff with the tools to be able to take responsibility for their well-being. And as I said, it provides a safe space, provides a sense of community, which is very, can be, right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. So of course, community is something that staff members for, but actually, the amount of colleagues that I speak to in the profession that do sense this lack of community it is a real worry. And of course, it is one of the factors of burnout that, you know, I know Steve's just joined us now, so I'm sure he'll mention more about burnout when he speaks. But, you know, this ability to be able to switch off. So we talk about all of these things in the network meetings that we have. So, you know, how do we prioritize our well-being? What are the tools? What are the strategies that we can use? Because well-being is, you know, we talk about this so often, but what well-being is for me isn't necessarily what well-being would be for you know, other people. I like meditation, I like putting on lavender oil in my infuser, but that doesn't necessarily float your boat. So it's about giving everybody a range of opportunities and a range of experiences to trial and test. And it's a great, you know, you don't have to make any commitments, you could just come along and see what it's about. But, you know, this aspect of switch off, there's been so much research and evidence that teachers cannot switch off. So Steve and I are looking at the feedback that we get from teachers and then developing some you know, actual responses to the evidence and the sort of responses that we're having from teachers. So learning through personal development, because, you know, nobody teaches us this at university. And again, I'm really passionate about supporting our new teachers, our younger teachers that are coming through into the profession, but actually placing personal development training and resilience training at the heart, at where, you know, where they need it the most. So whilst they're training. So I'm working really hard. I'm a fellow of the Chartered College of Teaching. So I'm really, you know, working with Steve on that agenda to raise that profile. And then it's an opportunity to hear inspirational and motivational speakers, you know, some people that, you know, are absolute pioneers in their field. So how can we keep motivated? How can we stay aligned to our passion? Because we do love teaching, but how do we stay well within that? And then sort of gaining that, as I say, repeating myself, but gaining that space to be able to prioritize our well-being and really waving that flag repeatedly. So we run 7 networking events across the academic year, 1 per half term, and there's 1 during the summer, and the summer one is specifically around combating anxiety, because we find that the summer holiday, whilst a time for absolute rest, can be also a very anxious time where there's a long period away from school. So that's in a nutshell about the Every Teacher Matters project, which has been going for just over a year now, and we've had some wonderful responses, and we've got a multi-academy trust that's joined membership, so we've got hundreds of members on that now. So Steve Waters and I, we partnered over the pandemic. We've been working together for the past year. We partnered over the pandemic and have put together a membership program. And because of the work that Steve does, and because of the toolkit, which I'm going to ask Steve to share more information about that, we felt that we're in a position, we're actually providing a really comprehensive, a really holistic and a package for schools, which actually hones in on individual needs of your staff members within schools, of what they need through coaching, through well-being. And when I talk about well-being, you know, we're looking at, you know, mindfulness, we're looking at Tai Chi, we're looking at yoga, meditation, we're looking at, you know, mentioned essential oils, we're looking at this whole range of well-being to be able to sort of influence and share all of those things that may help an individual. But Steve's toolkit is very much around whole school change and implementing a culture of well-being. So Steve, can you tell us at this point about the Teach Well toolkit, and how does it support that and support to be able to implement the culture of well-being in schools?
Yeah, thanks, Anita. So the toolkit began out of my concern that teachers are not trained in how to implement well-being in their schools. They're not even trained in how to look after their own well-being, although that is coming more into teacher training courses. So head teachers often say, well, we'd like to do something about well-being. We know that we need to do that, but I'm not really sure how to go about it. So I devised the toolkit, which is a step-by-step approach to implementing a culture of staff wellbeing and mental health as a whole school strategy. It works on principles of whole school change, which are well recognised by head teachers and leaders in schools. So it starts very simply with an anonymised survey to find out where the staff are. Once the issues are flagged, I recommend that the school then sets up a wellbeing group from the staff, a voluntary group if possible. That group will meet at a time when there is another meeting happening, so it's within directed time. And then they consider the issues, discuss, and then make suggestions for how those issues are going to be addressed. Out of that comes an action plan, and then that action plan is kick-started, and the action plan is timed so that it's no less than 1 year in implementation. And the reason for that is that, just like any whole school change, you can't alter the culture of a school in much less than 12 months. And at the end of 12 months, so each term there is a monitoring survey, again anonymous. At the end of 12 months, there's an evaluation. And then the school then looks ahead to the next 2 years and makes wellbeing and staff mental health part of their whole school development plan or school improvement plan. So that's kind of broadly how the toolkit works. It's meant to take someone who's never been involved in whole school change step by step through that process.
That's great. Steve, it's part of the training that we do with the toolkit as well. We offer, I talked about training in terms of the Every Teacher Matters project before you came on, but I just wanted to, could you tell everybody around the Student Wellbeing Ambassador training, because that's phenomenal.
Yeah, so we offer, the Teach Well Alliance offers a 1-day training course for student wellbeing and mental health ambassadors. And the way that works is that the students become a part of the whole school response to taking care of their peers. So once trained, the students wear a badge. They're clearly identified around the school. They're introduced to the pupils in assemblies, and the pupils know that if they are struggling with something, or if they don't want to go to an adult in the first instance, they can go to one of the wellbeing ambassadors. And that group is trained not to solve problems, but to be able to listen without interruption, to give non-judgmental responses to find out a bit more about what the problem is. And then they're trained to know what to do about it, from very urgent problems through to relatively less urgent, but it might be the case that the pupil regards it as a problem that's severely affecting their lives. So, and they work very closely with one teacher who supervises the group. So they know at all times, for example, where to take a pupil to a place of safety if it's a safeguarding issue. What we find is that sometimes when pupils go to the ambassador, they sort out their problem, and then that creates a relationship with that ambassador. So when they see them around the school, they, pass the time of day, how are you getting on? How are things now? And that makes an important connection, particularly with students who find adult relationships in school difficult, or perhaps they don't have a very good experience of adults outside the school. This group works very much hand in hand with the staff. It's part of a whole school, again, a whole school culture, and it provides, it's kind of, the wellbeing ambassador's response is in microcosm what we hope that staff will be doing for one another. And because they're working closely with the staff, then we're all in this together. We all want to support people who, for whatever reason are struggling, whether this is an adult or whether it's a pupil.
Great, thank you. That's pretty much us, Andy. Can't hear you, Andy. You're on mute.
Sorry, I've tried to mute myself, so if the dog starts barking, we don't get interrupted. No, the work you're doing is amazing, and it is helping staff and pupils, but you also do system-wide support as well, don't you, in terms of bringing people together to look at really good models of well-being, but also, to act as a catalyst for what I'm consistently hearing is a new way forward. You talk to school leaders, particularly around the country, and I think what the pandemic has done has actually put them in a position that's given them time to reflect and thought, actually, I don't like what we're doing here with our staff and pupils. There has to be a different way forward. So would you like to say something about your conferences that you've organised?
Yeah, there is another way conference, which again has been the brainchild of Steve, but it has been wonderful in terms of, I'll let Steve carry on with that, but in terms of what you just said there, Andy, bringing school leaders together to be able to give them the space to reflect and looking at those models. I mean, we could talk to you, we just won't have enough time, so please do join us, because there is a separate website. Steve, if you could put the Other Way website in the chat as well, that would be really helpful. But we ran a very successful conference just before the summer holiday, and we had sort of 30 school leaders that joined us, and we spoke very, really from the heart, really sincerely about those things that are affecting us at that whole sort of systemic level that we're not necessarily happy about, in particular around high stakes accountability, and that how that is driving our colleagues out of the profession, head teachers and teachers alike. So we feel that we've got a movement going here with The Other Way, and would be more than happy to speak to anybody that would like to join us on that. But thank you, Andy, for your support on that, because that has been a great catalyst for change.
Yeah, and just to sort of give you an online update, really, in terms of where I'm up to with my communications, I've been in touch with a number of organisations such as the NGA, the Specialist Schools and Academies Trust. I'm in conversation with the NAHT. I do need to speak with ASSESS.COACH, and I've also got a meeting this afternoon with Dame Alison to have a conversation about pulling all these strands together and leading this forward, because this is the conversation I hear regularly with people I meet online, and prior to COVID, heard face to face when I visited schools. So it's really important that we drive this agenda forward and we find a new way of educating our kids that doesn't affect their mental health and doesn't drive our teachers from the profession. So absolutely. So if you're interested in that message, then obviously please do get involved and stay in touch, because we are keen for this to be a grassroots up movement, really, to try and drive a new way forward. So thank you ever so much for your input this morning. It's been it's the first time we've done a double act, but it's worked quite well. So thank you.
We usually work quite well together.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
Thanks, Andy.
Bye. Okay, we're going to move on to our penultimate speaker this morning, and Wendy Jagger is with us, and Wendy's organisation celebrates in the name of Ninja Warrior Kids Wellbeing Workshops. What does it mean to be healthy? What is mental health and physical health? And I know Wendy is here because she called in about 10 minutes ago. Wendy, would you like to take over?
Hello, I will do. I'm just working out how to share my screen and turn the camera on. It's not.
Okay.
Top
right hand corner. And you should have a little camera icon, then the mute icon, and then the share screen icon is right next to the leave button. So don't hit the leave button if you do.
Hang on, let me see if I can share. I don't know if it's working. Hang on.
Takes a couple of seconds.
Is that show? Can you see our PowerPoint or not?
You're going to need to enable your camera.
The camera's not enabling for some reason. Hang on. Let me try again. I don't know why it's not enabling the camera. And I'm clicking on it, it's not turning it off. It's still got the line through it.
Right. Would you want to talk us through your PowerPoint and you can share it on the website or in the
yeah, I can do that
in the chat?
Yeah, we had just some pictures and bits to show you. So my name's Wendy Jagger. I'm a primary school teacher from Lancashire. I've been a primary school teacher for 15 years. I'm also the SENCO in school, the inclusion manager and the mental health and wellbeing lead in our school. And I currently also work with Johnny Erzili. Johnny is a 3-time Hungarian gymnastic medal winner, a personal trainer, and our paths crossed when we both applied and took part in Ninja Warrior UK on ITV, the hit TV show in 2017. Now, I didn't do that well, but Johnny went on to win the show and become last man standing. And the children in my school at the time were following my progress and were really, really excited by it. So I invited Johnny in and we used it as a tool to help promote growth mindset in school. And we did a big assembly on growth mindset, going for goals, achieving your goals, resilience, and the children took part in an obstacle course in the hall, focusing on that. So from that, it sort of got shared via social media, and we had lots of other schools asking us to deliver the same thing. That's how we came about. We've since worked in 50 schools across the country, delivering different workshops for them. So we currently run 2 different workshop days. We run our growth mindset workshops and our mental and physical wellbeing workshops. As mental health lead in my school, you know, I'm very aware of its importance at the moment, particularly after lockdown and coronavirus, that it's a really important topic that we focus on in our schools. So our mental health and physical wellbeing workshops explore what it means to be healthy on the inside and the outside. Quite often when you ask children what it means to be healthy, they describe how to stay healthy physically, but they don't often talk about being healthy on the inside. So our workshops aim to focus on that and look at the difference between physical health and mental health. And we look at different strategies on how we can keep our minds healthy and why it is really, really important that we do so. So we will do a whole school assembly at the start of the day. We've in the past obviously done that with all the children in the hall, but currently under the new regulations in school, we're doing that virtually by pre-recorded video. Then each of the classes comes to the hall and takes part in a Ninja Warrior style obstacle course, which helps promote physical well-being, and we talk about their mental health as well. And we do mindfulness sessions within those workshops with them. Our growth mindset workshops work in a similar way, where our whole school assembly starts off talking about the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindsets. And we look at key things like resilience, persistence, motivation, and never giving up. And again, the children take part in different obstacle courses, promoting those values. I'm going to show some photos of us in school delivering these workshop days, which I will let you have, Andy, and you can share them so people can have a look through. We've worked in mainstream primary schools across the UK and special schools, and we're currently arranging to work with some high schools at the moment. Some of the feedback we've had so far, I'll read you a couple of the comments, but all of our reviews are on our Facebook page. A mainstream school said, we had the absolute pleasure of having Johnny and Wendy in our school today to host a Ninja Warrior Day for all classes. From start to finish, the whole day was just amazing. The buzz around school was infectious. The children and staff loved it. What a fantastic, inspiring experience for all of them. From a special school we worked at, we had a lovely comment saying that Wendy and Johnny were incredibly supportive and encouraging, which meant that the children had an amazing time. The children and staff Look forward to welcoming Ninja Warriors back in the future. Most of the schools that we've been to have invited us back for a second year and a third year in some cases to deliver different workshops for them. So our price is obviously depending on how far we have to travel. We are quite happy to work all around the country, but the days are priced from £550 per day. There may be an additional travel charge on top of that, but all SAS customers get a 10% discount. We run the workshops on Thursdays and Fridays, term time, and we also have set up and run after school clubs in a lot of local schools near us that work particularly well. We've undertaken comprehensive COVID-19 risk assessments so that what we're delivering in school fits in with schools' own risk assessments, and it's safe. So as I said earlier, our whole school assemblies can be delivered online or virtually, where we wear PPE and social distancing is adhered to at the moment. We do comprehensive cleaning of all the PE equipment between bubbles to minimise any risk. Our enhanced DBS certificates can be emailed across before we go in. So we're working very closely with schools to make sure that our environment is a COVID secure environment. So obviously we're open to any questions that people have. We can be contacted either on Facebook or Twitter or through the SAS website. So I don't know if anybody has got any questions that they'd like to ask.
Typically, Wendy, the questions don't seem to be coming through the chat bar. I think people are happy just to listen in. And in many cases are listening to the recording back, so we rarely get questions in the chat bar. What I'm going to suggest we do with your presentation is, if you could send it to us, we'll put it on your page on the SAS website, the Ninja Warrior Kids web page, and then people can actually view it and view all the pictures you were talking about as well.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know why the camera's just not working today.
No, but you're based in the northwest of England, aren't you? But essentially, yeah, you travel anywhere in a post-COVID world.
Yes, we've just come back from working at a school in Hastings for 3 days, so we're quite happy to travel to support schools.
Wow, fantastic!
Well, thank you. I'll send you the PowerPoint.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And I don't know why the camera's not working, but it's a shame we can't see you this morning. Anyway, we'll let you go, and thank you for your input. And as I say, what we'll probably do as well, whilst the next speaker is speaking, is I'll try and go to the Wellbeing Partnership website, and we'll put your link to your page on there as well, so people can find that, and then they've got your contact details as well, Wendy.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we're on to our last speaker this morning, and unfortunately June Braid, who was due to speak to us on behalf of SAS in terms of Change Your Mind, Change Your World, is unable to join us this morning, but Danny McNabb has joined us. Danny, can you fill in for June?
Yeah, absolutely, that's not a problem. So the reason I'm filling in for June is normally when we run relaxation room sessions on a Thursday evening, I normally take part with her. So I get to listen to all the sessions that she does, and I'm not normally kind of under her I don't want to say trance, because I know that's not necessarily what she does, but because I kind of do the admin, I get to see kind of the background of what she does. June is a neurolinguistic programmer, therapist. She does hypnosis, visualization. There's quite a wide range of things that she does for schools, and she does them for individual staff and the school leadership alike. So if you are school leadership looking perhaps for something that you can do preventative to help your staff kind of identify mental health concerns that they may have, or to identify anxiety within themselves, June can run a stress awareness session for your school. So what she would do there is she would do a presentation, do some relaxation techniques, help people to understand what stress is, identify triggers that they may have, and identify ways that they can reduce that. So that's one of the things that she can do if you are school leadership. If you're just an individual person looking for support, June can do one-to-one individual sessions with people. In that case, you just need to contact SAS and we can organise that. Likewise, I did mention that we run a live webinar every Thursday night. This was something that we started in about June. We kind of recognised there were quite a few people within the education sector that were perhaps living by themselves and finding it quite difficult, becoming quite anxious and quite stressed. So we started running a session every Thursday evening at 8 o'clock. And what we do there is we do a couple of different practical relaxation techniques. So June will do some sessions where we might focus on visualization for relaxation. We might focus on hypnosis for anxiety, just as a few examples. What I'll do when I've finished talking is we've got a couple of different things that you can access so that you can get a feel for what June does. I'll direct you to the Ask June page, and on that page we do have a variety of things. There is access to her podcast there. You can also contact June through there. Also, June has done a few recordings for Key Stage 1 children to help them with anxiety. So she's got some visualization recordings there. There's one about a magic bubble, one about a carpet ride. So if you're perhaps interested in playing them in your class to help some reduce some anxiety with the children, those are there as well. And the podcast is something that she started this summer as well. And we've found that particularly since school's gone back, the listens to it have absolutely skyrocketed. But we've had quite a bit of feedback from people that listen to some of the sessions before they go to bed. So normally June does a new recording every Monday where she focuses on something different. Some weeks it might be hypnosis, some weeks it might be visualization. She changes it up a bit, but there is quite a bank of resources available on the podcast as well, quite a few different themes. So I definitely encourage you to direct your staff there. It's totally free. You can access it whenever you want. It's available on all major podcast providers as well. It's a good bank of resources for people to kind of just deal with kind of general stresses and anxieties that they have. But if anybody's interested in any of the one-to-ones or the stress management sessions, I'll also drop in an email address that you can contact June on there as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Danny. And there are so many wellbeing services that SAS provides as part of their policy for schools. That, you know, we've literally just scraped the surface. We've got one at the end of each of these wellbeing meets. So please do head over to the website and have a look at some of the services that we offer. They're having such a big impact in the schools that we work with, and we'd love to work with you as well. Thank you for that, Danny, and for standing in at the last minute. And it sort of brings us to this session to a close. What I want to do though before we finish is just to flag up what we've got next week, because next week at 9:10 we will have Adrian Bethune with us. And if you don't know Adrian, Adrian is a real authority on wellbeing. He's a class teacher himself and now a head teacher. He's written this little book called Wellbeing in the Primary Classroom, which is disappearing into my background. So I'll see if there we go. So Wellbeing in the Primary Classroom. And Adrian will be with us from 9:10 until 9:30. We've then got Elizabeth Holmes, how online hypno-psychotherapeutic counselling can help school staff manage stress and anxiety, enabling them to be happy in their work. We've then got Claire Holmes, how Null and Wellbeing can support strategic development of your whole school wellbeing provision. At 10:10, we've got Emma Cann, empowering school leaders to develop strategies for calm, confident leadership and create healthy, sustainable working environments for all. And then at 10:30, we've got Kimberly Evans, workload isn't the problem, how to find out what it is in your school. So, and I didn't say what Adrian's session was called, but the Adrian's session is the Seeds of Happiness course. Learn to teach the science of well-being to primary age children. a 7-lesson wellbeing curriculum based on the ideas from the award-winning Wellbeing in the Primary Classroom book, which I just held up before. We are also joined at 10 to 11 by Mandy Dowsing, who is an SAS nurse, who's going to tell you a little bit about the nursing provision that SAS offers as part of its policy to member schools. So it's a really packed session next week, 23rd of November. As I say, we'll go live at 9. We're starting with the first speaker at 10 past, and we're usually concluded by about 11. Just to let you know that this session is being recorded, so we'll bob this on the website, and you'll be able to watch this back. Please do signpost it to as many schools as possible. We know it's difficult at the moment for schools to maybe dial in at sort of 9 o'clock till 11 at least for the whole of the session on a Monday morning, but we're deliberately recording it, so it's an opportunity for people to be able to watch it back and benefit from some of the insights and, in many cases, professional development that we've heard this morning. Can I thank you, if you've been with us all morning, for your stamina. We are just about to conclude. I'm going to hit the stop record button. Have a really good week. You know, every week seems to bring its own fresh challenges. Just as I was coming online, there's a colleague of mine down in Hertfordshire who basically got a call last night to close a bubble at 7:45. So you're tackling all sorts of things that are really challenging at the moment. So look after yourselves, take care, and we'll see you at 9 o'clock next Monday morning. Thanks very much. Bye now.